We live in an age where the entire world fits into the palm of our hand, and yet our hearts feel more scattered than ever, and yet we feel more divergent and more distracted than ever. Why is that? Because every free moment has become a scroll. Every silence is filled with the noise of notifications. So we've therefore entered into this stage where we're in a state of constant distraction. The default now is to be engaged with a digital device, and the exception is stillness. The exception is to be disconnected from it. And yet the heart wasn't created for this. The heart wasn't created for this endless stimulation. Instead, the heart was created for depth and for presence and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the exact antithesis to what scrolling promotes. So what we're going to look at in this video is how can we reclaim our heart? How can we reclaim our heart in this world? So the first thing is we have to understand that scrolling is designed to hijack the heart. The digital world, it doesn't just want your eyes. It wants everything. It wants your emotions. It wants your impulses, your curiosity. It wants all of your attention, and it wants your heart. And this is the way that these things are set up. So therefore, every time we swipe, this is now a tiny bit of dopamine. This is now some pleasure we're attaining. Every notification we look at pulls us deeper into the social media world. Every scroll that we do numbs the soul just a little bit more. And then slowly but surely, without realizing, suddenly we're less present with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're less connected to ourselves, and we're less aware of our general purpose. We become completely disconnected from this. And this isn't because we're intrinsically evil or bad people. It's just because we become overwhelmed. Yeah, we become overwhelmed. So we have to understand this, that scrolling in and of itself is not a neutral act. It shapes everything. It shapes what you love. It shapes what you fear. And it ultimately shapes what you're going to become. It literally will change and alter your character. Number two, stillness is where the heart heals. Yeah. So in contrast to scrolling, stillness feels simple. Yeah, but it's something deeply, deeply profound. Yeah. Stillness is where your thoughts settle, where your heart is able to become enlivened again, where clarity returns. Yeah, and all of this noise around you now becomes silent, and you're able to actually think clearly again. And the Prophet ﷺ deeply valued this. Yeah, he had many moments of reflection, of deep thought, of being with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the early hours, every night. And this stillness wasn't like a nice thing to do. It wasn't a luxury. It was actually essential nourishment to the soul. Yeah, the soul can only become nourished through being still with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is ultimately what the soul yearns for and the soul desires. Because a heart that's constantly stimulated, you cannot absorb guidance. You can't absorb the truth of the Quran and the truth of this religion if your heart is always distracted. Yeah, so we need to become people who are people of stillness. The third point here, scrolling numbs and stillness awakens. Again, two opposites. Yeah. So just think about this. What happens to you after you've been scrolling for a long time? Your chest will feel tight. Your mind will feel foggy, unclear. Your heart will feel unsettled. And then compare that to the opposite. When you go for a walk, for example, or when you recite a verse of the Quran again and again, or you stop and pause and make dua to Allah. The exact opposite. Your heart is now feeling better, feeling lighter. Your thoughts are clearer. Your soul is waking up to reality. So this is the key. That when we scrolling is escape, and stillness is to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So literally, this is the battle. It's a battle of good and evil. We have to look at it like this, and whichever side we're on there, that's the side that's now going to take us onto whichever path we become and define who we are. There. Number four, Islam calls us not just to worship, but to awareness. Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to reflect, to think, to contemplate, to deeply ponder. You can't do any of those things without quietude, without stillness, without some type of space. You have to have moments free of any type of distraction or stimulation in order to become a person of reflection. Yeah. And the Prophet ﷺ, this was from amongst the essence of his message. Even when he spoke, he taught us when we speak, before we speak, pause and think before speaking. Yeah. Breathe before reciting the Quran. Breathe properly, and really reflect and ponder before making any type of decisions. Yeah. So really, the reality of this, what we call stillness, should be the default, the basis of our lives. Yeah, from amongst the most important of Sunnah to be revived, because we're only really going to notice everything around us once we become still. So it's really, really essential that we actually ground ourselves within this reality. Okay, so then number 5, then how do we do this? How do we reclaim our heart? This is the big question. So firstly, we don't need to disappear from the world. We don't need to delete everything. We don't need to, throw our phone away and start again. What do we need to do? Firstly, is we need to, at least to begin with, start to create small pockets in our life of stillness. 2 minutes after prayer. Just before you're about to pick up your phone, to say 100 istighfar or something like that. Like to have times throughout the day where you're now forcing yourself to disconnect from everything. And then through that, you now start to build up and build up and build up. Through until you get to the stage where most of your day is spent in moments of stillness. Then finally, your heart, number 6, your heart wasn't created to be constantly pulled. We have to understand this. Reiterating the first point, which is very important, is that this is very anti-fitra. Like when we're scrolling and when we're constantly being pulled this way and that way, first of all, we become reactionary in nature. We become people that are reacting all the time instead of choosing and making our own decisions. What else now? When we're scrolling, we now start to compare ourselves to other people, to whatever we're seeing, instead of appreciating what we have. When we're scrolling all the time, we become distracted instead of becoming focused. So therefore, many of the challenges that we're facing, whether it's challenges in terms of self-esteem, because we compare ourselves to others, it comes back to this. Whether it's challenges of being too reactionary in nature, instead of being proactive, it comes back to this. Or whether it's simply the challenge of being distracted and being moved away from our purpose, all of this comes back to this one essential point. So in conclusion, inshallah, every time you choose stillness over scrolling, you're making a decision to return back to the fitrah, to return back to the way that you were created, and to actually give yourself a victory. Give a victory to your heart over that which is out there. So do this. Reclaim your time. Reclaim your time, reclaim your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and reclaim your clarity. Because it's only through having hearts that are present and minds that are focused that we are going to be able to find true peace within this world and to be led back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.